Welcome to the budget workshop of the Cape Coral City Council. Today is August 5th, 2025. This meeting now comes to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Gunter,
Here.
Council Members Donnell, Kaduke,
Here.
Kilrain,
Here.
Lastra,
Here.
Lehman, Long, Steinke,
Here.
all present.
Thank you. Just a reminder to everyone who's here today, if you wish to speak during citizens input, you're required to fill out a public comment card. We're located on shelf over here to the far left of the dais. Please fill out your card. City Clerk will gather one of those cards or any of those cards right before citizens input. Your name will be called by the clerk and you'll come up to the podium when your name's called. Item 4 is business. 4A is the FY26 continued budget discussions, and I'll turn it over to our city manager to start with.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, good afternoon, City Council. We're going to have a presentation by our Budget Administrator, Nicole Reitler, on my proposed FY 2026 budget. Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Nicole Reitler, Budget Administrator for the city. Thank you for joining us today as we walk through our first budget workshop in August. This afternoon, we're going to walk through the city manager's proposed budget for fiscal year 2026. We will discuss our development process, an overview of fiscal year 2026 through 2028, including our revenues and expenditures, focus on structural balance, highlight the Fire Operations Fund and their impact to our general fund, discuss additional staffing in 2026, as well as our asset management plan for the future. Our goal today is looking for consensus on the additional 0.3 of a mil, as well as our recommendation as to where those additional funds should be managed. We will wrap up with council discussion and any questions you may have. If at any point you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to ask, or we can address once completed. As the new fiscal year commences on October 1st, the budget team and departments are proactively planning for our future. In November 2024, we launched our asset management program and began evaluating key initiatives from our strategic plan. Departments conducted a thorough review of prior year forecasts, engaged in discussions regarding personnel changes and operational adjustments, and analyzed both current and projected future revenue forecasts. The city manager's fiscal year 2026 proposed budget for all funds is $1,515,592,288, with the general fund proposed budget of $266,623,035. The proposed budget was built with a millage rate of 5.2188 mils based on July 1st taxable values from the property appraiser's office. In fiscal year 2026, our fire service assessment revenue will increase from 70% recovery to 81% recovery. There will be an 11% increase in our water and sewer rates, a $7 increase in our stormwater rates, and a 38 and 49 cent per dwelling increase in our solid waste rates. The chart presented shows our fiscal year 2026 proposed, as well as our 27 and 28 forecasted budgets by fund group. All budgets include any known expenditures and revenues through July 2025. A few adjustments to be mindful of are the state shared revenues, all of which have not been received, as well as the finalization of the police contract that is not currently included in our proposed budget and will likely change and impact our overall totals. Once we receive that updated information, we will present that to council. Focusing on the general fund for 2026, using a proposed millage of 5.2188 mils, the overall budget is just over $266 million. As a reminder, ad valorem revenue is budgeted at 96%, and our state shared revenues, franchise fees, public service tax, and our 5 cent and 6 cent gas tax are budgeted at 95%. When we analyze our general fund by category, Personnel services make up 56% of the overall budget at $149.4 million, with the bulk of our increases from 2026 primarily due to contract changes in our unions. Operating makes up 27.7% or $74 million. Capital is at 2.89% or $7.7 million, and other transfers out at 13.14 million or $35 million. When we analyze our general fund revenue sources, the total revenue is $266 million. Ad valorem taxes have a 3% increase built in for both fiscal year 2027 and 2028. Our local half-cent sales tax and our municipal revenue sharing all have increases of 2% built in at the 95% budget. Communication services tax has a 3% built in year over year. Public service tax has a 2.5% increase, as well as franchise fees has a 4% built in. Internal service charges represent our full cost revenue as well as the charter school reimbursement. As stated, currently we have not received all the state shared revenues, but we will update council once received. Fiscal year proposed budget and our ad valorem taxes. For 2026, general fund operating millage rate at 5.2188 mils results in no change from our fiscal year 2025 millage rate. Ad valorem revenue provides for the general operations from the city, and it is expressed in terms of a rate per $1,000 available. Our rolled back rate is 5.1471 and is designed to recover the same level of revenues as the prior year, not including any growth. As of July 1st, the city manager has proposed a 5.2188 mils, which results in a total tax levy of $166.8 million, with a budget levy at 96% of $160.1 million. City Council proposed, or the not-to-exceed rate of 5.5188 mils, is a total tax levy of $176.4 million, or a budget levy of 96% at $169.3 million. The rolled back rate, or 5.1471 mils, brings in a total tax levy of $164.5 million, with a budget levy of 96% at $157.9 million. Our fiscal year 2025 total budget levy was $149.1 million, and that's based on the post-VAB final 2024 values. That represented a little over an $11 million increase, or a 7.4% over 2025 numbers. This does support some growth and services. This chart shows Cape Coral's taxable value from 2015 through 2028 forecast. For fiscal year 2026, we had an overall increase in taxable values of 7.4%, including our new growth as well as existing growth, resulting in $11,038,390 in taxable revenue. Fiscal year 2027 and 2028 forecasts reflect an overall increase in taxable value of 3% as we move forward. The chart before you walks us through our July taxable value from the property appraiser at $31.9 billion. We divide by 1,000, and then we multiply the city manager's proposed millage rate of 5.2188 mils, which resulted in the $166.8 million. We apply our 96% collection rate, and it brings us to our budgeted revenue at $160,183,914. Included is a breakdown of our total taxable value change of 7.4%, which includes our base value change of 1.5% and our new growth of 5.9%. The general fund overall has a 3.15% increase in expenditures from fiscal year 2025, or a little over $8,137,000. The chart before you shows the fiscal year 2026 proposed and forecasted budgets with a deficit analysis for 2027 and 2028. At our existing proposed millage rate of 5.2188 mils, fiscal year 2026 is structurally balanced. However, without any additional positions or debt service plan for 2027 or 2028, we have an $8.8 million deficit in 27 and a $7.4 million deficit in 2028. If the additional positions and projected debt service are added into the forecast for budgets 27 and 28, we have a projected debt deficit of $24 million in 27 and $29 million in 2028. the fiscal year general fund expenditures by department. In total, the general fund has a budget of $266 million, representing 3.15% increase over our fiscal year 2025. And we've broken out each department so you can see their respective increases or decreases as we've adjusted the budget for 2026. As a reminder, city policy number 1 in our financial policies is about structural balance. The City of Cape Coral shall commit to and develop and maintain a structurally balanced budget, whereby current revenues equal current expenditures for the current and forecasted years to support high-quality services provided to our residents, consistent with the needs of the city. As previously discussed, and for your information today, in order for us to publish a budget, we need to be structurally balanced, not only in the current year, but in our future forecasted years. It is important to be mindful that existing deficits as they are presented today may restrict our ability to issue debt as we move forward. The future deficits in the chart presented are reflective of additional positions in debt that has not yet been approved. Without the additional positions or debt, the adjustment to the millage rate of the 0.3 of a mil would provide structural balance for the future and forecasted years. Based on the proposed fiscal year 2026 budget, the fire operations has a total budget of $83.4 million. With an adjustment to the recovery rate from 70% to 81%, the general fund transfer into fire operations is $17.6 million for 2026. Increases in expenditures of 5.42% or $4.3 million for fiscal year 2026 are primarily due to contract increases in our personnel services line. As we move into staffing for fiscal year 26, the chart before you shows the number of full-time equivalent employees per 1,000 residents from 2015 through 2026. With the additional staff in our proposed budget for 2026, our FTE moves to 9.35 full-time employees per 1,000 residents from 9.08 in fiscal year 2025. Looking through trend analysis, based on the 2026 proposed budget of $1.5 billion, over the existing population provided by the Bureau of Economic and Business Research as of April 1st, 2024, of 220,236 residents, the total budget per capita is $6,882. Focusing on the proposed budget staffing for the upcoming year, we have additional members joining our team. They include 1 position in the city attorney's office for a senior paralegal. The city clerk's office will get 1 full position, which includes 2 part-time contract positions, 1 for contract code compliance officer and the other for an administrative tech. Emergency management and resilience will get 1 position for emergency management coordinator. Development services will have 5 total positions, including 1 code compliance service supervisor and 4 code compliance officers. Fire will be adding 19 positions, including 16 firefighters, 1 data analyst, 1 logistics manager, and 1 fire life safety inspector. Parks and Recreation will add 3 positions, 1 senior rec specialist, a contract athletic assistant 2, and 1 contract athletic official. Police will add 16 positions, including 1 administrative assistant, 1 digital forensic tech, 1 police lieutenant, 9 police officers, 1 police sergeant for SRO, and a police sergeant for training, and 2 additional public service aides. Public Works will add 7, 1 solid waste inspector, 1 swale and sod crew within the stormwater fund, including 2 crew coordinators, 1 heavy equipment operator, and 1 service worker, and 2 additional service worker 1s. Utilities will add 12 positions, including 1 field supervisor, 1 maintenance supervisor, 2 utilities techs, 3 senior construction inspectors, 3 service workers, and a service worker number 2. Overall, our total number of employees projected for fiscal year 26 is 2,058.77. That does not include the CRA or our charter school. For fiscal year 2026, our asset management plan is proposed at $654.7 million in expenditures. This gets broken down into various types of A&P, including our capital improvements or our projects, equipment purchases, facilities maintenance, fleet or our vehicles, and overall land purchases. Currently, the city manager's proposed budget was developed utilizing a millage rate of 5.2188 mils. At the July 24th meeting, council set a not-to-exceed rate of 5.5188. This does not commit council to this rate for the proposed budget, but provides an opportunity for council to discuss and make adjustments to the budget as needed prior to the adoption of the final millage and budget. So what does that 5.5188 mean, or that additional 0.3 of a mil? If council moves forward with the 5.5188, it will result in the additional revenues for each of the subsequent fiscal years. In 2026, there will be an additional 9.2 million. 27, there will be 9.4 million, and in 28, there will be 9.7 million. Additional revenue in 2026 that we recommend that those additional funds go into our budget stabilization reserve for future needs. Additionally, if the proposed budget is adjusted from 5.2188 to 5.5188, the fiscal year 27 and 28 deficit will be covered, not including any additional staffing and/or projected debt. This rate provides council with options as we work through the final development of our 2026 budget. As a reminder, some of the important dates to remember, we do have 2 additional workshops planned for August 12th and 19th, if so requested. The first public hearing will be held on September 11th at 5:05 p.m., where we will be looking for approval of the tentative millage rate and proposed budget. And then on Thursday, September 25th, is the final public hearing at 5:05 p.m. for adoption of the millage rates as well as our budget. With that, I am here for any questions or discussion.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager, you have anything to add to that before I open it up for council discussion?
I do not. Thank you.
Okay, with that being said, I'll open up the floor for any council discussion. Don't everyone jump at once. Councilmember Kilrain.
Yeah, can you go back to the one that shows the land purchases of 600,000 on it? I think it's about 2 slides before the end.
The A&P?
The 600,000 in land purchases. Just wondering what those land purchases were.
Yeah, I've got the site up. Is this the one you're looking for?
Yeah.
Okay. So in your proposed book, there is a detailed breakdown of what's included in each of those categories. So your capital improvement would be any of our capital projects that we have planned moving forward. Any additional equipment purchases, facility maintenance to our existing facilities and structures. Fleet would be our vehicles, and then we have land purchases built in. So in your proposed budget book, it starts on page 241, and then it breaks it down. You can look at it by department in detail for line items, if there's something specific you'd like me to go through. The land, okay.
It's on page 246 of your
Okay,
budget.
I got it. Thank you. That answers it.
100,000 in stormwater and 500,000 in water and sewer. Likely the water and sewer is attributable to UEP, purchases of land for lift station, and stormwater is likely attributable to any type of boat ramps. We put money in for boat ramps and so it's not an identified purchase. It's a budget amount that
I
the
got it.
department can work with.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Laster.
Thank you, Mayor. Could you go back to the staffing slide, please? Thank you.
Absolutely.
I just have a question, and I don't know if you have the answer for this, but if you look back at the CAFR and you look at the unassigned fund balance at the end of, like September 30th, at the end of every year, for example, in 2024, we had $11,629,000 left. Do you know, or does anyone know what percentage of that was staffing? So for example, like positions we either didn't fill or that, we had a surplus, if you will, of that. Do you know what percentage that would be? Or is it a consistent percentage?
I don't have a percentage now. We can look back at it and I can get you a percentage for that.
That would be
We can
very
calculate that.
helpful. I'm just trying to figure out a way that we can find some savings with our staffing. If there's a way that we could, instead of budgeting 100% staffing, budget it 96 or 97% to be able to find additional dollars and not increase that FSA so much. I'm definitely not a fan of increasing the millage, and I can't just blatantly say, oh, well, I don't want to increase the FSA, because then I have to give suggestions on where else to find the money. So just in my, business experience, and I always know that, and I've said this before, staffing is usually the fastest way to try to find dollars. So I just would be interested to see what those numbers look like, so that maybe we can all talk about that collectively, and maybe there's a way we can not budget at 100% and budget at 97 or 96, what number would that give us? And then just subtract that from the increase of the FSA. I'm just throwing out that suggestion, because I thought years ago when I was first elected, I don't know if it was 19 or 20's budget, but I want to say that we didn't ever budget at 100% staffing. I want to say it was 97%, and I tried to look for that information online, but I couldn't find it over the weekend.
As far as I'm aware, we've always budgeted personnel services at 100%.
We did, okay.
And I will say that within fiscal year 2025, especially with all the adjustments to contracts that council has made decisions for, we are at about 99% at this moment in time of
99?
personnel services.
Okay.
And we still have a lot of unknowns moving forward.
Okay. Well, if we could just look at those numbers, that would
Absolutely.
be fantastic. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Steinke?
Thank you. I believe in regard to that, concept, if you will, I believe that one of the things that was brought up in the explanation was that since staff is a recurring expense, that to only budget it at a certain percentage this year then affects the future year's budget, and we kind of put ourselves into a continuous decline of funding for staff. Wasn't that the way that was discussed? Okay, that's it. Thanks.
Councilmember Long?
Yeah, I guess just following up on that same discussion, I had a similar question last year when we were going through the same thing. And so this is from June of last year, but last year there was 65 vacancies over 6-month-old and 33 that were over a year old. So very much so, we could do that. The pushback, of course, is going to be what we just heard. But, I mean, practically playing that forward, yeah, I mean, sure, from their perspective, it would be great for us to fund it all the way, and they have all these vacant positions sitting in the arsenal that they could fill at their pleasure. But the alternative would be to be more responsible, I guess, with the forward planning to allocate those dollars, and then, like we've already done, I think twice this year, come back to a budget amendment if there is a particular need in the future for a position, which we've also done in the past.
I definitely agree with that. I appreciate that. Thank you, Councilmember.
And then I guess just, I'll send this to you, Mark. I know you knew what she was asking for, but just an update on this one for the question that she provided, because this is, you provided me this figures back in June, so things have obviously changed. Thank you.
Councilmember Kilrain?
Yeah, just a couple of things with respect to the balanced budget requirement. Policy-wise, we're required to balance the full 3 years. I thought I heard that explanation.
For the current and forecasted years.
Okay, so 27, 28 need to be balanced too, and currently they're not.
Yes, we need to balance our budget.
Okay. I guess my question would, yeah, Mason.
With the 5.5188 mills, it is in fact budgeted based on our forecasted deficit. However, it does not take into account any additional personnel next year. It doesn't take into account the future debt increases for us to construct certain projects and then the works
Okay, thank you. My thought process is if we're looking at ways of reducing that debt occurring in 27 and 28, my first choice would be to go to Parks and Recs and look for projects there that could be extended in time. Because they're more in the, enjoyment of life. And my thinking is that I think we're being a little bit pessimistic about what organic growth is going to be in the next 2 years. And I think we're a little bit pessimistic about what asset value might be. So I'm kind of like that's in my back of my head, but I don't want to budget that way. But I'm trying to look for ways that would give us the flexibility to quickly recover and bring it back if we had to, and that's the first thing that comes to mind. If there's anything there from a Parks and Rec standpoint that could be further delayed so that we could reduce that capital coverage burden. And we're talking probably about 7% of the capital expenditure on a recurring basis at, 4.5%, 5% paper. So, Mark, do you have any thoughts there? So, City Manager, any ideas on the Parks and Rec stuff, anything that you can see us being able to deter a little bit and just kind of schedule out?
Yeah, to get to the balanced budget, I did cut out Sparkle and a couple other items that came up to the 11.5 million so that we could be balanced in the budget. Do you have what we cut from Parks? What was that? In the 11 and a half?
2.6 we cut from Sparkle.
Okay.
2.6 million.
Now, from what I recall, the ones that are the new additional debt that's generating the negative deficits are pretty much things like the EOC and other very critical of nature projects that we're looking at, right? They're some of our higher priority projects. So to delay them further would be pretty much a long shot sacrifice for us, right?
Do you have it listed out?
That's a different presentation, but these are the projected debt services that we would be
Oh,
bringing on,
at the
that you would
bottom. There
be
you go.
looking to
There you
cut.
are at the bottom, yeah.
The EOC, the fleet building or property management building, the Yacht Club reconstruction for seawalls, the police substation, as well as our North 3 transportation. Those are what we have budgeted in 27 and 28 as forecasted future debt.
Okay. And if you do the net present value on the future stream, it's probably gonna be more expensive to do then too, from a recognition standpoint, so. It's whether we bite the bullet now and wait, or wait and see what land gap comes in. Do we have the opportunity to budget deficit in those 2 years, or we wouldn't be balanced? Can we do that?
Not by state law.
Okay.
Have to be balanced. By state law, you have to be balanced annually. Our policy says we need to be budgeted over current and near term. So that's why we did the exercise with the consultant that showed in order to continue doing this, you could either do a one-time, as Councilmember Donnell proposed in your budget workshop, or as I think the mayor showed, we could do 0.3, 0.3, and 0.3, each year kind of chip towards it.
Okay, thank you. That pretty much warms my mind up.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's also important to mention, and you alluded to it a little bit, Councilmember Kilrain, is the numbers that we are seeing in our budget books for 27 and 28 is based upon a 3% growth. Mm-hmm. I personally believe that we're going to be better than that 3%. This year was 7.4%. In order for the city manager to balance the budget for this year, he showed the, FSA going from 70 to 81%, I believe it was. Yeah. And that balanced the budget. And if you remember when Stantec was here and we were playing with that model, if we did that 11% increase this year and you did a 0.3 next year and a 0.3 the second year that the city manager showed, based upon a 3% growth, we would still be within budget. I personally believe that we'll be more than 3%. I don't know what that number's going to be. But for me personally, I wouldn't want to prematurely increase the taxes on the ad valorem side based on that 3%. We already know we have a balanced budget for what the city manager has proposed for this year. Then next year, sit and wait and see where that ends up. If that means we're below 3%, we know that we're going to have to increase more than 0.3 mils. If it is more than that, or it could even be to a point where we won't have to do an increase at all to have a balanced budget, except for the growth, because that's only based on today's amount of personnel and our expenditures. Then reevaluate it for next year. When you take a look at our ad valorem tax, what was provided here today, 100% of the ad valorem tax that we would generate this year at 5.1288 mils is 176 million. That's at 100%. Now, the policy that the city has is we're only going to use 96% of that dollar, of those monies, which brings us down to 169 million. We know there's still 7 million sitting there possibly that we may have to work with. And then you look at some of the other things that have been mentioned here today, personnel cost. I believe you mentioned today personnel cost was about $149.4 million, I believe.
Correct.
And I know that we just substantially increased some of our contracts with our generals, with our firefighters, and we're in negotiation now with our police. So we know there's going to be, that's part of the reason why we have that increase for this budget year compared to last year, because of the contract increases. We know the police is still ongoing conversation. To me, when you look at the totality, whether it's the personnel costs, because we know every year we have money left over. Mr. City Manager, maybe a good reference for us moving forward is maybe take a look at the last 5 years, what we've budgeted for personnel cost and where we've ended up at the end of the year. I know this fiscal year, it's a little bit of an anomaly because we've had such the increase in the contracts with our trying to meet the 75th percentile. But it would historically be nice to see what that data shows. For me, mainly because we've only shown the 3%, and I know we did it somewhat when Stantec was here. It would also be nice to see 4%, 5%, 6%. If those assessed values are increased to those numbers, where is that going to make our 27 and 28 years land? So that would be some nice information to have moving forward as well, so we can get a good grasp on that. But again, we're only budgeting 96% of our ad valorem. We're doing 100% of personnel. We know it's not going to be 100%. If you look at the dollar amounts that in our CAFRs over the last several years, and I wrote them down from 2018 on. I didn't have 19. I couldn't locate my CAFR book for 19, but the monies left in unassigned funds in 2018 was 26.5 million. In 20 million, it was 71.8 million. 21, 77.8 million. In 22, it was only 5.1 million, mainly because of Hurricane Ian. In 23, it was 22.3 million. And as you've heard here today, at the end of September of last year, we had $11.6 million monies left over. So when you look at all of that, I'm willing to wait till next year where we have a better understanding where that taxable value is going to be. In the interim, I'd like to see that 4, 5, and 6%. I think it's going to probably be somewhere in that range more so than the 3%, just to see how much that's going to help us. So that's kind of where I'm at. One of the other things, to take a look at, if you look at the amount of personnel, and I know we're a growing city, but, between 2020 and 2025, we added 1,000 employees. That's a lot of employees. So, that's, when you look at our capital improvement projects that you had mentioned, along with the asset management, Councilmember Kilring, we got $7.6 million of our general fund dollars going to capital improvement projects. That starts on page 247 in our budget book and goes on, I believe, up to about 257 or so, 258. And it's listed in there exactly, general fund, how those projects are going to be paid for. And, you can go down that list of projects, each one of us can, and say, hey, is that something that, we may be able to hold off a year? You got a neighborhood park in there, I think it was 3.4 million, and a variety of other projects. I'm not going to go through the list. You can look at them yourself. But there's $7.6 million that we're paying out of the general fund for those types of projects. Some of those projects we may be able to hold off a year if need be. So for those reasons, I'll support keeping the millage rate at 5.2188 and move forward. Keeping the FSA at 81, if that's what we need to do to balance the budget. Refresh my memory, Mr. City Manager. If I recall correctly, we were trying to come up with about $8.1 million. Is that why we were raising the FSA in order to pay for the public safety personnel?
Public safety, the additional code officers, police, fire, what else was on it? The city attorney position, yep.
Yep. So when you look at 95% of that is for public safety, I guess the question that we have to ask ourselves, raising the FSA to 81%, is that what we want to do to make sure that we keep up, at least on the public safety side? For me, that answer is yes. If we can find the $8 million somewhere else that's a reoccurring expense, I'd be more than happy to take a look at it. I haven't seen it yet, but surely if we find it, then I would revisit the FSA going to 81. But in the interim, if that's what we have to do to keep our public safety moving forward and growing like our city's doing, I'm willing to do that. That's where I'm at. Thank you.
I just have one more comment, Mayor.
Yeah.
I thought the 96% was based on credit card use for the paying of taxes.
It's based upon the 4%, 3%, 2%, 1% discounts that are offered by the tax collector or by the state to pay your property taxes early.
And our historical, we've used 4%, and has typically, is that what has occurred? Or is it
Historically speaking, we receive about 101% of 96%.
Okay.
Which means we're just a little between 96 and 97% annually.
Okay. So we pick up a little bit there, but
We
a
will
tiny
never,
amount.
we will never reach 100% of the 100% of the property values,
Yeah.
property tax.
And just on the requirements for the balanced budget, we go in this year, if we keep the mill rate the way it is, we go to 11%, we're balanced this year. Do we have to declare the next year and the next year being unbalanced if we keep that mill rate projected throughout, or do we raise it in the projection by the 3 points? That's not going to cover you for the first year. You're going to be still in a little bit of a deficit. You're going to have to go higher than 0.3, right?
We've actually worked out those numbers, so the presentation you received from Stantec had a lot of built-in factors. They only looked at 95% spent of personnel operating, percent spent of capital. So when we look at our total overall budget and the $24 million deficit in '27, you would need to increase your mill rate in '27 by 0.7622 to a total millage of 5.9810 to cover that '27 deficit. And then in 2028, you would have to increase an additional 0.144 mils to 6.1250 to cover that deficit in fiscal year 2028.
Okay, I'm pretty much on the same page as the mayor, just described, where I would like to do those things necessary to cover public safety and to anticipate, but we can't budget that way, that we're going to get a bigger asset increase than we have and more organic growth contributing to that too. But I don't know how that washes with your requirement to balance the budget in those next 2 years. Can we go in at the 5.2 and 11 and then ratchet it up for those next 2 years just on our forecast?
Are you asking us to increase the millage rate to reflect a balanced budget for next year and the year after?
Yeah.
Is it, if the council, the rest of the council
No,
wants to do
I'm
that,
just
I'm
saying,
sure we can.
is that an opportunity to keep it at the 5.2188 this year with the 11%, so we're balanced for this year? Then we know that we're going to be in a negative if we keep it at that rate for the next year. Your number was 5.5, right, this year, to be able to make it that way.
Correct.
And that was bringing us carryover to 26, to 27 and 28. So in order to do that, we'd have to go up to that incremental amount that you'd have to calculate.
That's,
But what I'm asking you is that proper to do it that way, or as opposed to just going in naked on those last 2 years? I don't know how you do that if you're required to do it.
well, our policy talks about a balanced budget, a structurally balanced budget. Structurally means that we're balancing, utilizing current revenues and current expenses, and we're forecasting utilizing that same structure. So for us, you know, we want to be able to show that our current revenues and current expenses will balance each other based on our current forecast. You know, with just the simple understanding that, you know, we have to pay for the personnel we have to pay for the expenses that we have, that we incur on an annual basis. Doesn't mean that things can't be adjusted when we get to those particular years, but right now, this is just a forecast. I'm hoping that we get beyond 3% for next year.
Sure.
I don't know that we will, but I'm hoping that we do. But at the same time, if everybody seems to think it's at 6%, okay, then we can do 6%. That brings the deficit from, say, $8 million right now, probably down to maybe $3 million. But it's still a deficit.
Okay, and that solves the problem of matching the forecast, right? Balancing it in all 3 years. The other thing that's important, I think, is what the outside rating agencies do with respect to us being balanced. So we've got to have that in mind all the time.
They would
too.
prefer that we would show the structurally balanced budget.
Yeah, and we don't want to pull from the monthly reserve, the requirement there for the monthly reserve piece.
Not unless it's absolutely mandatory, and generally speaking, when you're in a down economy, when, we're forecasting what we can forecast, but the future is I don't know what the future holds in some cases. So, we can only speculate on what the future holds.
I got it. Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Just a quick question before I go to Councilmember Donnell and for our Finance Director. I believe I've seen a third quarter budget modification on our agenda. I believe it was $23 to $24 million, is that correct? Yes. Could you tell us what the second quarter and first quarter numbers were for our budget amendments?
I will have to pull that up.
And the reason we do our budget amendments basically is to have, to balance out basically our financial statements. That way the revenue and expenses match, correct?
Correct.
Right? And you don't have to answer that right now. You can look for it and get
Okay.
back to us
Yeah,
here
I'll have to pull
in a
it.
couple minutes. The point I was trying to make, I'm interested to hear just the last three quarters, how much we've modified our budget compared to what we adopted it as of last year. It's going to be pretty substantial. So I'll be happy to see. We already know the third quarter report's $24 million. And so I'd be interested in adding the three together to see where we're at. Councilmember Donnell?
43 million all funds.
Thank you. So let's deal with a couple of pieces. I think this is gonna boil down to philosophy. But there's this, when we talk about, a couple things that came up today was this piece about unfilled positions. And there were savings or monies there. Would someone out there address specifically, as it relates to this conversation, the impact of these unfilled positions as we're discussing it? Can someone just kind of lay what that means with what we're deliberating about, to have an unfilled positions in the budget?
And so we, in Cape Coral, our budget philosophy is to budget for what is, not what if. So if we have a position that's authorized, we budget it as if it is going to be filled to provide the level of service it was requested for all year long. In some cases, where we're adding new police officers or certain positions that we know will take time to onboard, in the beginning of that budget discussion, like we've discussed here, we will not fund the position for the entire year because we know in the first year, it's only gonna be filled for six months. But the very next budget year, when you do that, you have to budget for the full amount. So you're just delaying the inevitability of budgeting the full amount of the position. And you're trying to capture as one-time monies the unfilled portion. So that's at the front end.
Right.
The back end, let's say when somebody goes to retire or leaves, we budget a position expecting that employee to be here all year long, and then they leave in month 8. They leave in month 2, first quarter, second quarter. It takes time for us to onboard that position.
Right.
If it's critical, like a engineer or some other service, we will bear additional expenses in our operating budget as we get a consultant or contract to backfill that work to keep it moving. So, but you will see some unspent budgeted funds in the personnel line item.
Okay.
So what you're talking about is a what-if scenario, not a what is. I will tell you that in my 2 years of being city manager here, I have consistently, year over year, driven down the unfunded positions. So that one that you saw last year, my guess is it was probably 15% of the organization. I can tell you that I had HR run our report. Yeah, in fact, in last year's budget discussion, I explained a new policy that I laid out where HR will monthly analyze our unfilled positions and keeping them in context with the national standard, which is for our type of organization, 10%. So if we have 2,000 filled, 2,000 authorized positions at any given time due to turnover, retirement, injuries, we should have less than 200 vacancies just from normal attrition.
Right.
And so I have asked HR to monitor that monthly, and anytime a department gets over 10%, to intervene and find out why. Because that's above and beyond the average.
Thank you. Point number 2, there was a mention of when we just got an update and there's monies. Whenever we have monies, and there's been a modification, I think I heard 11 million and I heard 20 million. Then what happens to those monies if they came in surplus? Because that's what opens up this door. I get it now, where people are saying, well, there's got to be money, you're hiding money, somebody's on the take. My question is, what happens to any of those revenues that come in after an adjustment? Where are they shown on the document so the public can follow it?
Do you mean, well, that's the primary purpose of a budget amendment, right? So if we get a new grant, those revenues have to be recorded. And so our way of recording them is, one, approving the grant formally, and the agreement, the document that says here's $1 million. Then that grant then gets recorded in the budget as a budget amendment, saying, okay, we had, I'm gonna use a number, $1 million. Well, now we got a $200,000 grant. The authorized revenue in that year needs to be recorded as 1.2, not 1, right? You have, the
Right.
whole role of finance and accounting is to make sure that all of it is transparent and accounted for. And then, in addition, if you are increasing the expenses as a result, you're adjusting the expense side as well.
Understood. See, what's happening, if you're just joining us, this sounds like a lot of gibberish because there's a lot of moving parts here. And if you just parse it out, and that's my frustration because everyone up here is dealing with it, understanding the totality of it. The issue on personnel, ladies and gentlemen, I just had a meeting last week with what we're doing across public sectors. And because we're having this conversation, personnel costs, personnel costs are the majority of any budget in any business, those of you all business people up here. So I looked at, when mentioning, I was looking at what is the average value, FTE, for cities of our size in Florida or nationally. So that's what was driving me to see the number of personnel that we have. If you look at that data, you'll find that we're below both the Florida and the national average. Now, that's not a correct statement. Let's correct it right now. And then what happens when you're understaffed, if we're just talking about personnel, then what happens in the meeting I had, you change the title and put more work on one person when they start to get stressed out. So I'm saying to you, we're looking, it's a philosophical piece. You notice that they just mentioned, we saw on Stantec that if we go with what we're talking about, we're sitting here saying that we're making a decision knowing that next year we're gonna have to increase the property tax. Right now, no one wants to even talk about it. Now, what makes you think after an election year, we're gonna increase the property tax? Now we go to, well, you can find the money somewhere. It's the same thing every year. We sit here this year, we have the opportunity. Who knows, it could, thank you, Mr. City Manager, hopefully we don't legislate. Thank you for not building a budget of what might happen. They're sitting here giving you the facts, giving you the data, saying this is what's happening. And we have an opportunity to have a budget that's sound and carries us out of deficit for the next 3 years. And the impact of that, which is just alarming, is what we talked about, how it's gonna hit the resident. So there's a philosophical question about, I'm just not going to raise taxes, and that's really prevalent around these pieces. The other end is say, well, wait a minute. What do we need to strategically do to make sure that we keep our service levels and keep moving our city forward? That's just something that we have to deal with. So I get it. I understand it. I'm hoping that as we continue to have this conversation, that there's some way other than just trying to find the money, because then you all just get some kind of award. They're getting an award recognized by only 3 municipalities in the United States. Our finances are on point. They get reward after award after award. Now, the structurally sound, last piece, it's elusive. Because what we're not talking about is the number of things that have to get cut out of the budget. And I was here last year when I first met you all in order to get to structurally sound, and they're showing you all the things that get cut out. And it's just a matter of time before we cannot cut back and those things are gonna become mission critical. It's right here in front of us. There is no magic pill about finding money. We can make sure that we keep us sound moving forward for 3 years, and then they can plan. Instead of I can only imagine you guys sitting there like, oh my God, here's another council, what are we gonna do? I couldn't even run my household like that. So as we look forward, the piece, and I'm gonna appeal to those who were here. Last year, what we did, because I was sitting there when you all said, and I repeat, well, we found we can help the residents out, so we're gonna go to a half-back rate this year to help the residents out. I remember that. So I'm saying just as much as we talked about helping the residents out, and we've shown that we can roll it back, this year we're saying, hey, this is what we need to do based on the current climate. We're gonna need for you all to pitch in on this year based on these numbers, and when it gets better, and it will get better, we always have the opportunity to dial it back, because you all did it last year. So it's just a philosophical conversation, and I get it. I'm gonna get bombarded. Forgive me, but somebody sent me an email said that you can shove that stuff up your ass. I never talk like that. But that's the emails we get up here. I don't know if y'all get those. So I'll take the heat because I want us to continue to move us forward so we have a plan, because why? We can always dial it back and not sit here next year with a new council. I'm not raising taxes, and then here they go cutting. It's just a vicious cycle. So that's my plea. That's all I have for today. Thank you all for letting me just, all right, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Steinke. Before I go to you, I'll go to Councilmember Kaduc since she hasn't spoken yet. Councilmember Kaduc.
Thank you, Mayor. Nicole, did you mention about the FTEs when Councilmember Lastra, you said 99% were filled now?
99% expended. In fiscal year 2025, we do our regular analysis, and at this point in time, we're at about 99% expended.
Is that due to the increase in the contracts?
A lot of it, part of it is, but there's other increased costs, like city manager mentioned, when we have employees leave or we hire on new employees, some of the rates might be higher or lower, so there's a lot of fluctuation when it comes to personnel.
Got it, thank you. And then also, Mr. Mayor, you had asked, I found the ordinances, I couldn't find 60-24, but 1-25 was 74,4608, 13-25 was 24,29,526, and then tomorrow, 41-25 is 23,953,471. One thing I'd like to say, though, is it's really hard, I mean, we have the ACFR, we have the proposed, we have the adopted, we have the amended. It's very hard to track all this, and we have no way to see any of the reserves until we get the ACFR. The ACFR is then 6 months old by the time we get it. So, I mean, you have to bear with us when we're trying to track this all. It's a lot. Where do we see reserves ever, except for in the ACFR?
You don't, right? Primarily because there's too much fluctuation and too much change on an annual basis to actually get to a reserve number that might be a fixed number that you can work with. And the only time that that happens is when we're reporting on something that's happened in the past.
With that being known, for me, I'm still good with keeping the millage rate, the current rate that it is, the 5.2188. And if we need to make sure our public safety is funded, I'm okay with it being through the FSA. Thank you.
Councilmember Steinke.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question and a couple comments, though. On, I think it's your slide number 8, I think. We've talked about this elusive 3%, and we think we're maybe underestimating that, and we're being pessimistic rather than optimistic. I just wanted to make sure, because I know new construction obviously produces a tremendous increase once it hits the tax roll. So you go from a vacant lot valuation to now a completed home valuation. The 3% increase in value that's stated on footnote number 1, that includes the new construction as well as existing properties. So that 3% increase, we're just taking the overall valuation, however, whatever it was, and saying next year that goes up by 3%.
Not attributing it to how it's being generated.
Yeah, so if a high number of new construction homes are completed in time for them to be assessed as at a completed home property versus a vacant lot property, that can have an incremental effect on that 3%, one would think. So it's not just a market-driven number, it's also a what has happened to the property over that period of time number as well.
Well, I'll give you an example. This past year, we forecasted 5%. It's come in at 7.4%. 1.7 billion of that is new construction, which accounted for about 6%, 5.9%. And we had a recurring value increase year over year of existing value of 1.5%. So that got you to the 7.4%.
Okay.
Oh, that was 2.4% over what we originally forecasted. So at 3%, now, but at the same time, with that understanding, that 1.5% of recurring value is not funding basically it's funding not everything associated with our current costs. Some of the new construction is actually is taking care of the rest of it. So we're utilizing new construction to pay for recurring costs.
Okay, thank you. Another is that I just wanted to make mention on these amendments that just because there is an amendment doesn't mean that there is just an additional expense. And people approach me with that a lot. Oh, I just saw that we had to amend the budget because we had to spend another $38 million. Well, no, you also didn't notice that we amended our revenues by the $40 million grant that we got as well. And so when we file amendments, it's not just amending the expense, it's also having to amend the revenue once it's realized. So those amendments are not necessarily just added expenses that we weren't forecasting or didn't believe were going to happen. We can't list it until we have the revenue source there to go along with it. Is that correct?
Yes. At the same time, I want to point out, although the overall budgets have increased by the numbers that were discussed, on the general fund side, the budget amendment number 1 of $11 million increase in the general fund was primarily encumbrances, expenditures that were promised in the prior year that were expended in the current year. In the second quarter, it was $168,000 change in the general fund. And in the third quarter, you'll note that we're funding sidewalks that have come in at a higher cost than what was originally anticipated. So in order to complete those contracts, we're going to need another $2.2 million to complete those contracts. At the same time, we're also setting aside a $3 million economic development reserve in order to support and help with the economic development in the city. So when we're talking about some of these things, all of this has a revenue source on the other side, all of it. Doesn't matter whether it's a grant or whether it's or I'm issuing debt or there's some revenue source that's going to be on the other side. For us, we set aside the $11 million as part of our reserves in order to cover those encumbrances. So the funding was available in the prior year, and we're now bringing it into the current year. As far as the $5 million we're talking about, that is coming from the $11 million unassigned reserves. So it's sources that are available to us in order to utilize it for those purposes.
And so in that case, perfect example where it's good to have a savings account. And so when we have reserves and we have budgeted revenues lower than what could be, and we've budgeted expenses higher than what might be, that's what allows for that buffer, that savings, the type of financial rating that we have that we just heard about awards that we get. It's at that point to say, hey, here was a whoopsie where prices went up in that course in time before it could be completed. We have a savings account, and we had the money to do that with. So when we talk about having surpluses, I'm just hoping we can get past that means we're overtaxing. We're having good fiscal management, just like any of us in our own households needs to have a savings account for one of those unforeseen occurrences that's there, so it doesn't put us in a bind. And the last piece was, when we first started talking about this, we talked about the fact that the millage may need to be raised to meet all of the needs and wants, if you will, and we put it back to the city manager and said, all right, not going to do. You got to go back to your departments. We got to find this much money. Can't do that. I believe that's been done. So I too can support keeping the millage where it is with the other increases that were discussed, and let's take a look at what happens to those property values in 2026 to see that instead of there being needing to be that increase. Let's see what happens to the property values, and leave the millage rate where it is. So that, I have the same support as my colleagues that have already said that.
Councilmember Kilrain.
Yeah, just go back one more time. When we had the consultant and David talking about future growth, we talked about actual closed new properties in this period of this year. And I know that they don't, we've got about an 18-month lead time until they really get booked in. So we were running a rate of 2,500 at the time. We were thinking it was going to be a little bit in excess of that for this year. So I'm thinking that organic growth is going to contribute to 27 late and probably for sure in 28, right? By the time that they get COD'd, get the occupancy level on those, and they get booked in. So what I'm trying to wash here is the statutory requirement versus actually collecting the money from residents this year to support the revenue for next year, right? So if we go in at the 5.218, we know we're not going to have any reserve carryover to the following year, right? Based on the current projections of 3%. So another way of skinning the cat is to keep it this year so we don't actually take the people's money, increase the projection to 4% or 5%, whatever you need. Now, is that being honest in what you're thinking? I think that there's enough propensity in what, I guess I would like to bet on the side of being a little bit more optimistic on what's coming in the future and modify our projection of what 3%, maybe to 4% or whatever for the next 2 years. It still doesn't help us for this coming year, but I think that we see evidence already that this year might be better than the 3%. 2026 might be better than what we're thinking as 3%. And if we can carry that forward to the next 2 years, what it accomplishes is allowing us to stay at the 5.2188 and then not project that increasing, but increase the asset value. Now, I don't know if that's playing a game with it, but strategically, it gets us through both impact of the statutory requirement. It allows people to look at us with a balanced budget over those 3 years, and all we're doing is modifying, being more optimistic about the projection. But we're not taking more money from the residents' pockets in this year. Now, we can always adjust it next year if we have to, and that's a lot about what Councilmember Darnell was talking about. If we really hit the fan and have to go back, it's going to be an election year. We're going to have to pull the plug, and we're going to have to do it to make ends meet. But I can't see taking it this year when there's a little bit of uncertainty there in the future. And there's always going to be uncertainty, but I mean, I think it's shading positive right now. I was much more pessimistic 4 months ago than I am now about what the future's going to be. And only because of things that I see, the mortgage rates has ticked down in the last 3 weeks significantly. And I think with the restructuring on the Fed that we're going to see, I think we're going to see more propensity for that coming down. And I think inflation's a little bit better under control in a macro sense. Now, how does that affect us here? Well, we're still going to have people coming here looking for homes. So, and I know we got a glut in the market right now, but I think that's, you know, that's stabilized. So, thank you, Mayor. That's just some thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, when you take a look at the city manager's proposed budget, he's already balanced the budget. He's met his statutory requirements. That has to be done on a yearly basis. Look at the screen that we have up now. You know, when you're talking about a budget, city manager has balanced his budget by known variables. He knows what the assessed value increase is. He knows all the other information when he comes up with that budget, and he provides it to us. When you look at years 27 and 28, they are unknown variables. And we can plug all the variables in we want to make that number look differently. An example, I did that when Stantec was here. I said, we'll do the 11% increase at FSA, 0.3. That took care of those deficits for those two years. You know, when you look at this slide that we have up here today, we have the FY '26 proposed ad valorem tax at $160 million. 27's forecasted for almost $165 million and almost $170 for 28. I got the 2025 budget book up on my computer. And in FY '26, we forecasted the ad valorem tax to be $155.6 million. So we're about 4.4 million ahead of where we thought we were last year. FY '27, they're almost the same. I mean, within a few hundreds, or 165.7 million and 164.9, so difference of about $800,000, so we're pretty close. If you would go back, let me get to my page 35. If you could go back where it shows the general fund revenue on the one slide.
The revenue sources?
No, not that overall general fund revenue versus expenses. You had it up earlier. There you go. I think that's it right there. You know, in FY '25, we forecasted FY '26 to be $249 million. And here we are in FY '26, proposed 266. We forecasted 27 to be 261 in revenue million, 261.8. And here we're at 298 million point six. So the reason that I mention that, if you go back over the last several years, and I've done that with the budget books, and you look what we project, and then the next year, we're always way ahead of where we projected. I don't know why that is. I know this year personnel cost had a big variable, but I know we do our budget amendments throughout the year, so that really plays a part in it. That's why I asked what our budget amendments were. And honestly, I was writing something down when you said that. Could you tell me what they were again? Or did you have it?
BA one was 72.7 million, BA two was 24 million, and BA three was 24 million. But of that, the general fund represented, and I'll just start again, 1, 2, 3, 11.3 million, 168,000, and 5.2 million. But Councilmember Kaduke had the numbers correct.
Okay, all right, thank you. Yeah, so I was just, trying to show you, we have $125 million this year alone just in adjustments to our budget. Knowing that we're coming into possibly some tough years, we don't know what it's projected to be, I think we have to make sure also that we try to stay within our budget as much as possible throughout the year, so we don't see those big increases like we've had in the past. I think we've been fortunate enough in the past, but I think we have to be careful with that. I don't see any other lights on, Mr. City Manager. I guess the information you're looking for today, I think we've heard from just about everyone except Councilmember Lehman. I think what you're looking for today is a consensus on where we are with the ad valorem, the millage rate moving forward, in the FSA. Are you still looking for direction? I know that you've balanced your budget, keeping it at 5.2188 and the 81.
Yeah, our goal for today was if council was going to adopt the 5.5, we wanted to know where to put it. Our recommendation was to put it in the budget stabilization fund, so that next year you may not have to, if it continues to go down, our existing value and the new growth does not make up for that loss, we would have the funds to put towards that, so the millage didn't have to go up as much. That was our recommendation. I think we heard today, I think
we'll go down the line.
Doesn't even look like we're gonna do the 5.5, so.
Yeah, I think we'll just go on down the line. Looks like, we keep the millage rate at the same, or we go to the 5.5.
the same 5.2188.
Same, 5.2188.
Yeah, keep it the same.
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 All right. All right. Now, I think that's another discussion we can maybe go down the line to FSA. You know, if we want to have a little further discussion, I've seen a bunch of lights pop on all of a sudden, but we can talk about the FSA. I know the balanced budget is utilizing the 81% FSA. So just you know, if we decide to move from that, that could impact some of the public safety positions that we had on there. But with that, I'll open it up, Councilmember Laster.
Thank you, Mayor. As I stated before, I really think we still have some opportunity with that FSA. I'm not 100% convinced yet. I want to do some more research, you know, maybe look at some comps. I mean, I think, was it you, Councilmember Long, that said in one of the meetings, you were like, you said something about going inward, and I think I agree with that. I think there's still some opportunity. So I'm not there yet. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Kilrain?
Yeah, I'm there. I think that public safety is extremely important, must be our priority, along with the operating pieces. So I'm at the 11%. And I know we're going to take some of that to back into some of the required operating maintenance that we have to do. But police, fire, and making sure that the place operates well is what's important. And I'm all for it. So thank you.
Councilmember Law?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just for me, circling back on the FTE stuff, I'm sure there's an explanation, but just looking online real briefly, you look at, you know, so often when we do anything, we compare our neighboring cities, at least in particular, to population. And so you look at like the next two higher populated cities, and you've got Port St. Lucie at like 250,000 residents. And so you look at their FTEs, and it's like they're like 1,400 FTEs. You would go to Hialeah. They've got the Hialeah, who does have fire.
Port St. Lucie.
I know, I'm going next to Hialeah. Same exact thing. They've got a higher population than us. They've got like 1,300 employees. Even if you included in the 1,400 the fire, they're still, if they did have fire in Port St. Lucie, it would be far less than the 2,400 than we have projected here. I was just curious, outside of the fire explanation, you don't have to provide it today, because I know they all operate differently. Each
I know what the answer is.
has different needs.
We're the
so-
second largest city geographically in the state.
Right.
So if you looked at their, you know, in some time, you know, this is why you have to look at multiple metrics, right? So you look, that's fine to look at a per capita, but when you look at their.
You guys provided it per capita.
Oh, yeah,
So,
no,
I
I'm
mean,
just
we've got to
saying.
pick which metric we're using.
It's-
I mean,
it's
the
just a-
slide here said per resident.
It's
FTEs
just
per
a
resident.
point of information.
Okay, well, I
But-
mean, it goes both ways.
But if you look at the number of square miles that we need to cover for swale regrading, pipe replacements, parks and recreation, any smaller city is, we're having to replicate that and duplicate that 3, 4, 5 times over, right? You've seen the chart that shows the city of Cape Coral with Boston, LA, Tampa, and, you know, we can fit major metropolis cities in ours, but we have to provide service across the entire 120 square miles. So that's the staffing that we have to go up.
Well, we've got to be careful with that then, because I mean, those are the figures that you guys presented to us. So as far as the FTEs per 1,000 residents.
Yeah, it's
So
just,
then when I bring that up with comparables, then we switch to square mileage. I mean, we got to.
it depends.
I know what you're saying, and I'm not disputing what you're saying, but if we're putting that figure out, and then under just a little bit of scrutiny, it doesn't look as great as we think it is, then we need to maybe change the way that we measure.
It depends on what the point is,
Efficiencies.
right? So when you're looking, if you're looking for efficiencies, I can tell you the department heads are looking at metric deliverables, right? So what is it costing us per linear mile of swales? What is it costing us per linear mile of pipe? How many breaks we're having per linear mile of pressurized pipe? What is the cost? So you have to, when you're looking at operations and metrics, you have to layer in and understand what the goal is you're trying to accomplish and make sure you have the right metric. What was the purpose of putting up the per capita? Just to global statement?
Yeah, it's just information we've previously provided that's been requested, so we put that data out there.
So I would say, from my perspective, showing a year over year per capita for you all will show you, if nothing else changed in the budget, but the resident load is going up and the number of housing unit is going up, then that would be a level of service decrease. Because we're having to service more phone calls for PD, more phone calls for fire. More swales are being built and need to be regraded. More people are driving on the roads and, need to be maintained. So you want to have at least some gauge of where your FTE, now, if your FTE population is going down, maybe you're outsourcing more. I mean, it's just a point of reference.
Got it, thank you.
Councilmember Donnell.
There was a question about, that I had asked the council members up here. We talk about safety, public safety, and kudos to the police department. If you saw the release about the crime rates, they should be coming out. Excellent job. But I had asked council, how do we define public safety? We always say police and fire. But for me, I include public works in that conversation. So this might not be the time, but at some point, we have to put on, I would like to talk about and get, where does public works fall into, or if it does or does not fall into your idea of public safety. I just wanted to make that point again because we never got an answer to that. And if we had to put it on a cow just to talk about it very quickly, that's fine. All right. I just want to throw that out there. Thank you.
Councilmember Steinke.
Thank you, Mayor. I've talked about this several times, and I think it's a halfway decent discussion, and that is the use of the property checkbook that we have in Cape Coral. I just looked up my own address, and in some cities, there's more reliance on the county than there is on the city, and how they spread the money around. It's an 8-cylinder engine. Where are you going to get it from? All 8 cylinders are pumping the whole time. So when I take a look at Port St. Lucie versus my house, at my house the county taxes are $3,303. In Port St. Lucie they'd be $5,585. That's a huge increase. The city cost of services, Cape Coral $3,158. In Port St. Lucie, $2,765. But when you put the two of them together, Port St. Lucie's $83.51, and in Cape Coral, my house is $64.62. So I think we always have to keep in mind that there's all different cylinders that are making these engines run. And when I look at the public service tax, utility tax, in Cape Coral, on my house, it's $115. In Port St. Lucie, it's $216. So it's almost 100% increase. So when you talk about increases, it's only $100, but when we like to switch to percentages, you say, well, it's a 100% increase. So I think as we go through this budgeting and we consider rules of thumb, or how do we compare to other cities, and whether it's just numbers of citizens, or whether it's, numbers of square miles that we have to maintain. I think it's important that we always consider all the cylinders of the engine, because one city may choose to get it from one direction, another city may choose to get it from another direction, but it all plays into the same budget. It all makes the cake. I just, for those that are kind of questioning and wondering when we get compared to other cities, that tool is just an amazing tool to just try to get a litmus test of how do we compare against other cities and how they relate with the county and in which cylinder of the engine that they draw their fuel from. So that's it. Thanks.
If I could clarify, Councilmember Laster, were you basically asking, I know you said you wanted to look within to see if there were any funding opportunities. When you said that, are you saying that the list that's proposed in front of us, that you want to keep those positions, but look internally to see if there's any way to fund those positions before we raised the FSA. Was that what you were trying to ask for?
I think what I'm trying, I mean, it's a little confusing, right? Because in our own presentation, we stated per resident, and then Mr. City Manager just clarified it's per capita. So I think the metric needs to be the same, because I was gonna, exactly what Councilmember Long just did. I was like, all right, let me take some time, let me research other municipalities that are similar to us. But I think, yes, I mean, I want to keep police and fire, absolutely. That's always, I mean, you know, we just got a great media blurb. We decreased crime in Cape Coral 28%. Of course, you know, service, to answer your question, Dr. D, you talk about level of service, and I've always learned since 2016 that it's service times, being able to service our residents quickly so that there's a quick turnaround. I don't want to take away from that. I'm just seeing if there's any other opportunities in this staffing in other areas, Mayor, that we have some other opportunities. Maybe we could scale this back a little bit, you know, and look at it. I mean, like I said earlier, I don't want to just say, oh, I'm not supporting an increase in the FSA, not without giving solutions. So, yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to see if there's other opportunities, maybe in other departments, maybe in other areas where we could scale it back a little and come up with some additional revenue so that we don't have to jump as high on the FSA. That was kind of where I was headed.
All right, so my understanding, Mr. City Manager, raising the FSA from 70 to 81%, was that about $8.2 million of additional revenue, if I recall?
It covers the increase of the cost of the positions we're adding.
Which was about eight,
About 8.29 million.
right. So I guess, Mr. City Manager, I see your light on, go ahead.
Been a couple of meetings, but I think it's worthwhile to mention a few things. I had my departments scrub their operating to cover the 75th percentile. Then I had to scrub another 11.5 million of things that we've told the community we were going to do just to get balanced. Which is why I had to present a hold the line budget. You all said that was not appropriate. We wanted to continue recognizing growth in public safety and code.
Need it works.
That's all that's funded here. I'm telling you, we've scrubbed internally just to fund the contracts that we approved. And then I scrubbed another 11.5 just to make a balanced budget. We wouldn't even be considering the FSA increase if you all didn't want to add those positions. Thank you.
So I guess the question is, do we want to add those positions? And if so, do we want to increase the FSA? So I guess we'll go down the line and answer that question, at least try to give you the direction moving forward. It's already been in your balanced budget. And I guess, you know, the question is, do we want to move forward with this, with the FSA increase? Or, because what I heard added, reading between the lines in your comment there was, there's no other places to go look, that Councilmember Laster.
On the scrubbing, I would say no. I mean, we went through it to take operational dollars to make up the personnel increases that we all agreed to set as a target and a goal for our community and our employees. So that's why I had that one chart several meetings back showing you all the operating cuts that were made. But then if you remember, I said, but look at the increases in personnel, they exceeded what the scrubbing. So it was basically, that's where the money went. I say this every year. It is a city manager proposed budget, but you all know this. I've been speaking to you about the budget for the last several months. You know what was going to be in the proposed budget before it even came out, right? It's our budget, but it is mine to proffer. Thank you.
All right, got a couple lights on. We'll address those first. Councilmember Steinke?
Yes, thank you. In my my support of the 5.2188 was in light of the other changes. So to now just handle one piece out, it might mean that I have to go back and change what I say about my 5.2188. So I'm happy to go down and talk about that, you know, and support or not support. Obviously, with the 5.2188, it was because I supported moving to 81%. But one real, a quick question. I know it's not in the presentation today, but in a previous presentation, there was basically a cost per property, if you will, on moving from the 70 to the 81%. So in other words, you know, if we will, per person or per household, what are we talking about in the context that it was just described? What are we talking about per household to add these positions and complement our public safety?
Yeah, that was in the last presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll see if we
I
can't
think
get that.
Nicole's looking
Yeah.
for it. It's real
It's
quick.
$90-some
There's
per
93.
265,000 or so, just vaguely off the top of my head, $94, something like that. Based on assessed value of 260-some thousand.
No, it was in the presentation that was in June, July.
Anything else besides that, Councilmember Stanky?
No, that was it. Just the fact that, you know, when I look at these others, these are inflation-based changes. The increase in water and sewer rates, you know, having not increased them for as long as we did, and the effective inflation on the materials and the labor costs and all that goes along with it, the 11% increase is understandable for me with inflation. The fact that it wasn't dealt with for the number of years bothers me. The $7 increase in stormwater rates, once again, I think is inflationary, and the solid waste rates, we've talked about that one ad infinitum with where we are with our rates and where we're going to be in a few years. And so overall, yes, I'm okay with the 81% because I chose to support the 5.2188.
And I agree with you. I think when we go down the line, that's pretty much, it's a package deal. This is what we're agreeing to, all of these things.
Yep, I think Nicole has it.
At the average structure value of 261,998, we would go from 475 to 549, or it's a $74 increase.
From 475 to
549,
549. Thank you.
absolutely.
Councilmember Kilrea?
Yeah, I'm on the same page with the full package. I looked at 5.2188 as a result of having the other changes we talked about, the 11%, and also the other requirements on the fees. As far as staffing on both police and fire, I recall that the fire was a optimum service level. And that optimum service level was either going to be overtime or it's going to be people. And we are looking at expanding into the future, and I think it's right to do it with the people. So I'm not backing off that. I think that the people are necessary. I think we do that. Same thing with police. Chief Sizemore had mentioned that he was comfortable in bringing them on board later in the year. And that's a result of, and as a result of that, less would be incurred in this 2026 fiscal year, and the full burn goes to 27 and 28. They're in the rub lies. We've got to figure out 27, 28. But as far as 2026, I'm on board with it, the full package as it is, and I don't want to change it. Thank you.
Councilmember Lehman?
Yeah, I just have a question. At some point, Mr. City Manager, you mentioned the outsourcing of different things. Wouldn't that decrease the budget if we were not outsourcing as much as we are? I mean, obviously, police, fire, public works, the infrastructure, but now, obviously, police and fire, you can't, that's not something that's outsourced. But with public works, if we were not outsourcing as much, wouldn't that then decrease the budget?
If you cut the level of service, So let me give you an example. We outsource median maintenance, the tree trimming, the grass clipping, the mulching, fertilizing. If I didn't fund that contract outsourced, the only other option would be to staff it with employees. And so if you wanted to have the budget go down, you would have to not provide that service. I don't think you all would like
No,
that.
you don't want to, no, I'm not
it-
saying
it
not
dep-
provide the service. I'm saying, wouldn't it be, in the long run, wouldn't it be cheaper, even if we had the employees, to have the employees that were part of the city, as opposed to outsourcing? I would think that outsourcing, it's costing us more.
It depends on the service. It depends on, is it temporary? Is it permanent? So for example, if we only need, let's say the traffic engineer is vacant. If you're gonna go to a contracted firm to pay for a traffic engineer, typically you're paying multiples of their salary, 2-3 times the hourly rate, to cover the overhead and benefits. So it would be cheaper to have that type of position. It's a permanent position. If you are inefficient at what you do, then it doesn't make sense to try to do it internally because you're not efficient at it. So whenever we have a program that is sustained and is going to be something that is going to be repetitive year after year after year, part of the department heads and finance's job is to look at how we are delivering that service to make sure we are doing it in the most cost-effective and efficient manner. Let me give you an example of some outsourcing that made sense to go to the private sector. In the early 2000s, late 90s, the city used to do its own road paving. We used to do it several months a year, had to go out and get the material, had to bring it in. If we didn't pave it all through the end of the day, we'd have waste. And it has turned out and is still much cheaper to have the private firms pave our roads. And they work till dark, they work through dark, they handle the risk of all the equipment. So in some situations, it's cheaper to outsource. On the other flip side of that, and these examples are all gonna be Public Works just because that's what I know. Other departments have similar, but ones I can speak on quickly. Swale regrading. Numerous contracts, numerous projects, we've always looked at, can we get the private sector to regrade square foot of swale cheaper than us? The answer has continuously been no. We have a driver that every day, 2 drivers go out and purchase sod from a sod farm and bring it back. It's cheaper than you can purchase sod from the private sector. The equipment and the speed at which our city staff have built a system on, they can regrade a square foot of swale quicker and cheaper than any contractor we've ever analyzed against.
We know.
So it just depends
That's what
on-
I was questioning.
It
you know.
depends, it's gonna depend on the service, whether or not it's something we do routinely, if it's something we didn't always do curbing. This is a recent one as of 2 years ago. We were paying outside contractors to do our median curbing. After we paid for 2 or 3 of them, $80,000 for a median, we did a cost-benefit analysis and determined it's cheaper to buy the equipment and have our own crews do it. So it really depends on the analysis of how much of a quantity are you trying to deliver, over what time period, and then you have to put together the analysis.
One of the, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, but one of the things I would question, I know what I've been told, and please clarify if I'm incorrect, is that, like with the dredging of canals, because we have a lot of canals, that we used to have 5 dredging machines, and we had the staff to run them. Now we have 1, and let's face it, we got citizens jumping up and down all the time about canals not getting dredged. Now we're outsourcing that. Is that a more effective way to do it, by outsourcing it?
When I first started working in Public Works, we had 6 dredges.
Okay, excuse me.
No, I'm being honest. I mean, we had 6
Yeah, no, no.
dredges. Each had a 3-man crew. We had 18 employees in dredging. At that time, when we were going through our dredging master plans, there were hundreds of thousands of cubic yards of material that needed to be dredged in order to get to the 5-foot mean low water or 5 foot below the controlling elevation.
All right.
The reason for that was the Rosen brothers didn't have that level of service, that standard. They just dug the canal. Our canals, despite how we sell them from an economic development perspective, their primary usage is a drainage system. The secondary usage is for boating. That's not how we market the city, not how we utilize it, but they were dug, they are our primary purposes for draining catch basins, which drain swales, which drain the streets, to get the water moving and out off the streets and out of the roadways. So at that time, when the Rosen brothers went through the city, there were no standards of how deep. They dug for material. And so if they got good lime rock, it went to do roads, they would dig out. Some canals are 20 feet deep, some were 2 feet deep. So when we came up with the standard based on the Army Corps permit that said the Army Corps would let us dig 5 feet below mean water, and the DEP said behind any weir, you can go to 5 feet deep from that controlling elevation, we needed to staff up the amount of dredges we had because we could do it more efficiently. The amount of cubic yards we could deliver and we could pump into these vacant lots, unimproved lots. When that has been completed in the mid-2000s, there's no way for new material to just show up in the canals. It either needs to be dumped there or it needs to be organic growth of oysters or the only place that we continuously see now new material and the complaints you're hearing, if you think about where they're all on the edge of the city. Matlacha, right at the entrance of Tarpon Point, Rum Rudders, go around the corner to Redfish Point, and then all the way up to the Coral Point Canal. They're all on the edges of the city, all because of tidal movement and hurricanes.
All right, so if I understand.
So most of what you're going to see from us from a canal dredging standpoint, now that we always talk about we're in a growth mode or a maintenance mode, most of our canals are in a maintenance mode. We've got them to the appropriate depth. It's going to take some massive force to deposit or remove material from the canals.
Okay, so essentially, if I understand you correctly, you're saying that with the dredging, we are better off outsourcing it. It is more cost-effective to outsource it?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I want to know.
Based on calculations of what it costs, the other thing is the risk of having additional, so let's say we have one piece of equipment and that piece of equipment goes down. Now I've got a whole crew of people that need to be shuffled to a different piece of work. In the private sector, they have the resources focused that they can just bring in another dredge. We can't just rent another dredge.
No, I understand.
It's not like a
I
car.
just wanted a clarification on it. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Long?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, real quickly, still trying to put this together. So we've got another example here, actually on the screen, of you guys using the metric FTE per 1,000 that you quickly disposed of when I tried using it. But this metric, go back, is different than this figure is different than the one that's shown 2 slides above. It's almost like 18% different. This is 9.35, and that one was 11.04. Someone explain to me, are we using different figures to get those numbers, or how are we? Number 3 on the right-hand side of the screen, showing 11.04, and the other one was 9.
So the number 3 in this presentation, we had included the CRA and the charter school, even though the number 1 talks to the total number of FTEs. When we calculated that 11.04, I believe we had pulled in the CRA and the charter, whereas this chart here does not pull in the CRA or the charter because it's not reflective of city staffing.
And so that's another reason not every other city has a charter school with teachers and custodians and food service workers. So I didn't try to dispense or dispel it. I just wanted you to be cautious about what you use it for.
So this chart that you're showing here is showing the 2,058 FTEs, which are exclusive of the CRA and charter? And then you're saying the page that you actually,
They are not. So the 2,058 does not include our CRA or charter, and I believe that this chart includes that 2,058.
okay, got it, thank you.
Do we have a slide on there from the beginning of the presentation? I believe it had the millage rate, basically all the fees, the millage rate, the FSA. Wasn't that listed on one of the slides in the beginning?
Are you talking specific to this one?
Nope.
No.
There it is. Nope. There it is.
Yep. So basically, you have on there the FY25 millage rate at 5.2188, fire service assessment, revenue increased 81%, cost recovery 11% increase for water and sewer, $7 for increase in stormwater rates, and $38.49 per dwelling increase for solid waste rates. And that's how this particular budget, my understanding, Mr. City Manager, that's how this budget was packaged.
That's what's in the CM proposed budget.
Okay, so I guess to get two questions. Number one, I think we'll go down the line, make sure everybody is okay with the proposed budget and these outlines. And then I guess the next question, Mr. City Manager, if there's a consensus of at least 5 individuals, and this is the direction that we continue to move forward in, is there a need for any additional budget meetings?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay. All right, with that being said, I will start over with Councilmember Kadook, and we'll go on down the line.
Thank you. I am good with the proposed budget on this page 4. The only reason why I even suggested the 5.5188 was because that was not touching the PST or FSA, just to be clear, and it covered the cost of the budget. Thank you.
Ditto.
I'm on board with it. The only question I have is though, if you're good with this, you don't need any further direction, what are you gonna do for 27 and 28?
We'll see you next year.
All right. I thought we had to do it this year though, to have a structurally sound for 3 years.
We'll talk about it internally, to come up
Okay.
with a methodology.
Cool. I'm not going anywhere.
Right. But I would like to still, I'm okay with what's presented here, but I would like to see that 4, 5, and 6%, just for future. Councilmember Long?
Yeah, I'm not gonna make a decision until I see some of the stuff that we requested here today.
I'm paying in the corner. Because I want to say no, but to say no means us, we've been down that road, we remember how that played, so. But I've heard everybody, so I'm on board.
Yeah, I'm with Councilmember Long. I would like to, I'm not there yet. Thank you.
It sounds like you have at least 5.
6.
Just a quick side note, in order to balance the budget next year, we get 8% increase
Okay.
in value. So if you need to still know what 4, 5, and 6 mean, I can certainly get that for you, but to balance, it's 8%.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Councilmember Lehman, I see your light still
Yeah,
on.
I just want to ask a quick question, and I don't know which of you gentlemen can answer it for me. To stay at the 5.2188, and with the increase, the 81%, the 11%, $7, and the $38.49, what is, do we have any idea of an average or some kind of a ballpark for the increase to the homeowners? I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, if we didn't increase the FSA or any of the other, if we didn't go with the 81% and so on, and we went with the 5.5 millage rate, which is going to be more advantageous to the homeowners, is what I'm asking.
We'll have to get back with you, but I think that information was provided recently in our last meeting as to what the cost of the homeowner is based upon their average values.
Okay.
It was in the presentation from Stantec, we'll get it. The one that results in the cheapest increase to the homeowner is the one of moving the FSA up 11%. And the reason for that is you're spreading the cost out on the ready to serve, the cost of the fire department, you have a larger base. You are funding it with unimproved properties at a higher rate than you would if it was through the millage.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other lights on, it looks like no further discussion. Last call for comment cards, so if anybody has a comment card, just raise it up. Staff, city clerk's office will get it. All right, and we'll move on to citizens' input. Citizens' input time is a maximum of 60 minutes is set for the input of citizens on matters concerning city government. 3 minutes per individual. Please remember to state your name. We'll utilize the podium. To my left, your right, the city clerk will call your name, and you can come on up to the podium when she calls your name up.
Grace Gilberti.
Just state your name real quick. That's okay. Could you tap on that mic to make sure it's working?
Yeah, I don't think it's working, Mayor.
Hello.
Yeah, there you go.
Sorry, I wasn't close enough.
Yeah.
Okay, Grace Gilberti. I live in the southwest area. And the first question I want to ask, which was not discussed here, I wanted to know the amount of money that we've received from FEMA, how much we got in reference to how much we thought we were going to get. Can anybody give me that information? Okay. Number two, in reference to the 2025 budget, we had a proposed budget, and then we have the actual budget. What is the difference in that? Was there a difference? Why do we have ad valorem taxes? Why don't we just add it into the tax base? And, how are our reserves and what are we required to have in our reserves? Okay, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom Shadrack.
Hi, Tom Shadrack, permanent resident. Appreciate the time and the conversation today. Just a couple points, and I think I gave a chart out earlier that talked about how much have we increased our revenues over the last 5 years. You know, we talk about the millage rate going down 18%, but that equates to a pretty high increase in still tax revenue because of the property values increasing. If you look at the three-legged stool of taxes, ad valorem, PSD, and FSA, since 2020, with last year's budget or this current budget, it's a 62% increase in those revenues. And if you add what you're doing here today, that's an additional 12.7% from those three tax streams. You'll have actually increased revenue from those three tax revenues by 82.9% since 2020. So in 6 years, we've increased taxes in dollars from those three streams by 82.9%. Now, Doge is going into Jacksonville because they've raised their rates 47% since 2020. And they're appalled that that's so high compared to inflation and growth. So these are statistics that people are going to know through social media. Are you prepared for that? And as another example, my market value of my home, I went and looked on LIPA. The preliminaries are out there. We don't have our trim notices yet. But my market value went down $128,000 on my home. But my assessed value went up 2.9% because I have saved my home benefits. Because I've been here over 5 years. During that inflationary time, we got to save the home benefits. So my assessed value is going to go up almost 3%. So I'll be taxed, even though you didn't raise the millage rate, that extra value. So if you're using $74 because you're increasing the FSA, if you look at the whole value, for me, it's probably going to be close to $200. Because for anybody over 5 years, their homes, their millage rate's going to go up, property tax value is going to go up, plus you're raising solid waste and all the other ones, it's going to be $200. People will be able to see that next week when they get their trim notices and their assessment changes. So that's real. So that's coming. Then the other thing that I've talked about a couple times up here is interest rates. We had $10 million in interest last year that's not budgeted. We've already got $7 million this year that's not used. There'll be another $10 million next year. It's not used in budgeting, but you have that extra money. Okay, thanks.
That's the last comment card I have.
Okay, I'll open up for any discussion from council. Okay, seeing no comments, time and place of future meeting, we have a regular meeting, Cape Coral City Council scheduled for Wednesday, October 6, 2025, beginning at 4 p.m. here in council chambers. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting adjourned.